With the release of FNAF 2 in just a few months, I thought it would be good to look back and discuss what exactly happens in the game. While I don't think much of the game's story is going to be directly adapted to the movies, as they are in their own timeline and are doing their own thing, I think understanding what exactly happens during FNAF 2 would be good for the theorist space. Before we get into the events of this game, I want to discuss some theories and explanations I have on some of the events before we get into the timeline proper. I won't be talking about the shadows right now, as I feel they aren't important to the overall story of FNAF 2, and I want to leave those for a different video. Of course, these are all extrapolations of thoughts I've had on the events of FNAF 2 and how these pieces all possibly fit together, but I want to get the conversation going and give my thoughts on it. Without further ado, let's dive into FNAF 2. The year is 1987. The month, November. Now, how could I say that FNAF 2 takes place during November when Phone Guy says summer job?
Hello, and welcome to your new summer job at the new and improved Freddy Fazbear's Pizza.
Well, the check we get on night 5 has the date November 12th. But what if the tapes are pre-recorded? They likely aren't, and I'll get into that. But there's more to this summer job title that Phone Guy calls it. This is where we have to look outside of the games for an explanation. A summer job is simply another term for a part-time job, and Scott is substituting the term part-time job for summer job. The game even implies that this job is a part-time job. Going back to that paycheck, the memo line says, "Welcome to the family." I would bet, considering Phone Guy says we aren't even the first guard to work there.
You're only the second guard to work at that location. The first guy finished his week, but complained about conditions.
The guard position is a rotating position, and are usually temporary workers. Guard positions, for any establishment, can be temporary jobs, and oftentimes are. And at this point in Fazbear's history, hiring temporary employees for guards makes logistical sense. Moving on, let's discuss the animatronics. Phone Guy mentions to us about the history of the current animatronic models.
Fazbear Entertainment is committed to family fun and, above all, safety. They've spent a small fortune on these new animatronics. Facial recognition, advanced mobility. They even let them walk around during the day. Isn't that neat? But most importantly, they're all tied into some kind of criminal database so they can detect a predator a mile away. Now, that being said, no new system is without its kinks. Certain characters seem to move around at night and even attempted to get into his office. Now, from what we know, that should be impossible. You see, there may be a minor glitch in the system, something about robots seeing you as an endoskeleton without a costume on, and wanting to stuff you into a suit.
Now, many have taken Phone Guy's words literally. The new toy animatronics have issues with their facial recognition software, and that's why they attack. This has been a prevalent explanation to the toys' behavior throughout the years, even though Phone Guy says this about the FNAF 1 animatronics, and everyone universally agrees that they are haunted. But I digress. There is more to the behavior than it seems, and I'll get into that shortly. But first, let's hear what Phone Guy has to say about the older models in the back room.
I'm sure you've noticed the older models sitting in the back room. Those are from the previous location, and we just use them for parts now. The idea at first was to repair them. They even started retrofitting them with some of the newer technology, but they were just so ugly, you know, and the smell. So the company decided to just go in a whole new direction and make them super kid-friendly. Those older ones shouldn't be able to walk around, but if they do, the whole Freddy head trick should work on them too, so whatever.
There's something Phone Guy says here that's important to reiterate. They even started retrofitting them with some of the newer technology. Phone Guy says this as an explanation for why they share similar behavior to the toy animatronics, but the withered animatronics look different compared to their FNAF 1 counterparts. Granted, that is likely to be because FNAF 2 takes place before FNAF 1, and we know FNAF 1 takes place somewhere between 1989 and 1993. But Phone Guy mentions that they wanted to reuse the animatronics and started to use the newer technology, such as the criminal database system and the endoskeletons later used in the toy animatronics, first on the older models. But they came out so ugly. which if you look at the final withered animatronics, you can see why, and they ended up not being used. As we are likely only in the first few weeks of operations, Fazbear Entertainment likely tried to relaunch Freddy's with the retrofitted animatronics, but as the customers saw them as ugly, and of course the smell, they pivoted hard and made the toy animatronics. Thus, why there is a grand reopening newspaper clipping. Of course, that newspaper clipping can easily just mean the reopening of Freddy's in general, but that is still something to bring up. Now, the reason I say this is likely what happened is because we see the older models in the pictures hanging around FNAF 2. Golden Freddy, or Fredbear, Withered Chica, Freddy, and Bonnie, who look much closer to their withered counterparts than their toy versions. The toy animatronics, by the time we're playing FNAF 2, are as new as they can be, having only been in operation for a few weeks by the time we play. However, within those early days, repairs needed to happen, and children have already taken apart that new Foxy model, so those animatronics needed to be repaired with the older models in the back room as they share technology and endo parts. Which leads into my next point. Throughout FNAF 2, we can play many mini-games that trigger when we die. All of them give insight into the story FNAF was telling at the time, showing us how the puppet came to be with Take Cake to the Children, showing the MCI, or Missing Children's Incident, with Foxy Go Go Go, and how the spirits came to possess the animatronics with Give Gifts, Give Life. All of these showcase the older establishments and the history leading up to FNAF 2. Only one, however, shows us what's happening during FNAF 2. Save Them has the player, as Withered Freddy, follow the puppet throughout the establishment, discovering 5 bodies and 6 blood pools across the FNAF 2 building. This is the Dead Child's Incident, or DCI. And either here the minigame ends, or we are stopped by Purple Guy, William Afton, who is seen in 2 of the 3 previous minigames, that is the one responsible for the murders. But wait, go back a bit. We see the toy animatronics in this minigame too, not moving. Shouldn't they be moving if the murderer is in the building, attacking him as they do us, if it's just their criminal database system? Well, let's take a look at the odd one in the room. Mangle. As stated before, the kids have already had their way with the new Foxy animatronic and took them apart. Because of this, the new Foxy needed to be repaired constantly, getting parts replaced and added onto, likely from the withered animatronics in the back room, gaining an extra head, extra limbs, and, more importantly, Remnant. We see in the Save Them minigame that the only other animatronic moving, aside from Freddy and the puppet, who we know have spirits inside of them thanks to the other minigames, is Mangle. Since Mangled had to be repaired and parts replaced, those parts coming from the Withereds transferred the Withered spirit energy, their remnant, into the Mangle and gave them life. This then happens to the remaining toy animatronics as well. As parts needed replaced, spirit energy is transferred over to the toys and they become possessed, acting in the same way as the Withereds, and Fazbear Entertainment, not knowing what is going on, chucks it up to a programming error, just like in FNAF 1. Which also means Fazbear never learned their lesson and continue to be incompetent. We could even see spirit energy influence with the pre-night cutscenes. We wear a Freddy head, likely infused with spirit energy and remnant from the kid inside Freddy, Gabriel. This energy makes us see what he saw when he first woke up inside the Freddy suit, possessing it. I want to thank Rytos for this idea, I really like it. Looking forward to special delivery, the company responsible for making the animatronics said that they had a difficult time making physics-impossible endoskeletons, likely for Mangle to hang from the ceiling. Spirits can do impossible stuff, not programming or engineering. Now, this is all well and good, but if this is the case, how are they moving in the previous nights before we hear Phone Guy say someone used a spare yellow suit in the back room during night 6? What's the timeline here? Who used that suit and what for? I think I got an answer, but let's lay out the complete timeline of FNAF 2. FNAF 2 takes place over the course of 7 nights. 6 of those nights we are playing as Jeremy Fitzgerald as the grand reopening of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza starts to fall apart. Weeks prior, Fazbear tried to open up this establishment with retrofitted designs of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, Fredbear, and likely the Puppet and Balloon Boy as reintroduction of existing characters and wholly new ones. Customers complained about how ugly and smelly they were, so they were sent back, and the new toy animatronics were created to be more kid-friendly. As the days went on, the toys needed repairs, and the animatronics in the back were scavenged for parts, taking some of their remnant with them into the toy animatronics, namely Mangled. Around this time is when William Afton likely started out as the new night security guard and killed another 5 kids during the first few weeks in operation once the toy animatronics came into service. However, before they got any repairs from the original animatronics. William likely did this to either put this Freddy's out of service or to simply see what would happen if he killed another 5 kids in front of the kids or another possession experiment. He is then transferred to the day shift after complaining about being attacked by the newly spirit-infused toy animatronics. Now, what happened to the bodies? Where did they go? It could be likely William hid them in the animatronics again, but the toys are too small for that, and I doubt he hid them in the withers again. It is likely he simply left the bodies around for the day shift people to find, or simply disposed them in a different way. As the night shift guard, no one else is around, so you could have taken them off property to be found somewhere else, or simply never found. Thus why there is an investigation going on, and why Fazbear continues to play coy about what is going on out there.
Mind about any rumors you might have heard lately. You know how these local stories come and go and seldom mean anything. I can personally assure you that whatever is going on out there, however tragic it may be, has nothing to do with our establishment. It's just all rumor and speculation, people trying to make a buck, you know. Our guard during the day has reported nothing unusual. So, just to update you, there's been somewhat of an investigation going on. We may end up having to close for a few days, I don't know. I want to emphasize, though, that it's really just a precaution. Fazbear Entertainment denies any wrongdoing. These things happen sometimes. It'll all get sorted out in a few days. Just keep an eye on things, and I'll keep you posted.
Phone Guy keeps up with the company policy and deny. They don't want anyone to know another 5 or so kids went missing or were killed at the new Freddy's while it is trying to reopen, or even try to link what happened at the old location to this new one. Jeremy, of course, has already joined on in what would be this location's last week in operations to work through the nights, and William, now knowing that the toys are also possessed, tries to tamper with them and find out why these ones possessed if the bodies were possibly never stuffed.
Just as a side note, though, try to avoid eye contact with any of the animatronics side if you can. Someone may have tampered with their facial recognition systems. We're not sure. But the characters have been acting very unusual, almost aggressive toward the staff. They interact with the kids just fine, but when they encounter an adult, they just stare.
I would guess that the spirits of the kids became more and more agitated by William being in the building and are just building and building with rage, enough to possibly even harm a customer. William is likely found out to be tampering with the animatronics and subsequently fired before finding a key piece of information. The toys were possessed by sharing metal with the original animatronics. This is key in what he would do later with the original band, but I think I'll get to that in another video.
Hey, keep a close eye on things tonight, okay? From what I understand, the building is on lockdown. No one is allowed in or out, you know, especially concerning any previous employees. When we get it all sorted out, we may move you to the day shift. A position just became available.
This then leads us into night 6, where the day before someone used a spare yellow suit in the back room. This is where my thoughts diverge from most people. Many theorists expect that William simply redid the MCI again, spring Bonnie suit and all, around the time of night 6. I, of course, already stated when I think William did his second batch of killings. However, I don't think William used the spring Bonnie suit for the DCI during FNAF 2 either. I don't really think he used any suit for those killings, and is why Freddy is able to see William and try to go after him, aside from the puppet telling us to do so. I think what happened is an employee simply used the Fredbear suit on accident during the day shift, and that made the animatronics angry. Why do I think this? Aside from we know Golden Freddy was at that location as a physical animatronic, and the fact that Springtrap likely didn't exist when FNAF 2 was being made, and Scott likely intended the Fredbear suit to be the killer suit instead, which he has William use the Fredbear suit in the Silver Eyes novel, so it's not too far out of the possibility. We know the Spring Bonnie suit was likely sealed away in the back room after the MCI in the first Freddy's location due to the FNAF 3 tapes.
Management has also been made aware that the Spring Bonnie animatronic has been noticeably moved and would like to remind employees that this costume is not safe to wear under any circumstances. And this is just to inform all employees that due to budget restrictions, the previously mentioned safe rooms are being sealed at most locations, including this one. Work crews will be here most of the day today, constructing a false wall over the old door face. Nothing is being taken out beforehand, so if you left anything inside, then it's your own fault.
This is even backed up by the in-between night minigames during FNAF 3. The Spring Bonnie suit is in the safe room William attacks from in the FNAF 1 location. The Freddy's the MCI took place in and had a safe room sealed up, recently knocked down by William or simply from disuse and abandonment over the years. We do see, however, that Fredbear was likely taken to the new Freddy's location. As stated before, pictures of Fredbear are seen in the establishment with the withered animatronics, and Fredbear was likely also fixed up, or tried to be, and possibly used in the first soft opening before it and all the other original animatronics were retired. If we go one step further and believe that the puppet was at Fredbear's too, I could see Fazbear Entertainment trying to replicate the Fredbear's charm and success. Phone Guy even says they're trying to find the owner of Fredbear's Family Diner.
We're going to try to contact the original restaurant owner. I think the name of the place was Fredbear's Family Diner or something like that. It was closed for years, though. I doubt we'll be able to track anybody down.
However, just like Fredbear's, they end up closing due to a big bite. After someone used the Fredbear suit, the animatronics all get angry. And then, the bite of 87 happens. The Bite of 87 is a hotly debated topic in the FNAF community about who did it and who got bit. The general consensus is since Jeremy got moved to the day shift and we never see him again, probably, and Fritz Smith takes over for night shift and Freddy's closes that night, he is the one to get bit. This also means the phone calls have to be live calls for each night, not pre-recorded. Although, who did the Bite of 87 still remains a mystery. However, the book the week before seems to imply that Foxy was the one to do the bite. The book has a line of dialogue by phone guy Ralph about Foxy being out of order and that everything about this animatronic screams, not for kids. Probably why this attraction has been marked out of order for the reopening. Though as far as you know, he has never bitten any kids. This pretty clearly implies Foxy bit someone, although not a kid. And since the Bite of 87 victim was likely an employee, there really is only one option. There is, of course, the possibility Mangle did it, as they are the Foxy, and their attack comes from the ceiling, but Foxy being the one to do it seems very likely. After this bite, Freddy's is forced to close, and now the place is unguarded as Jeremy is missing his frontal lobe, except for one person, Fritz Smith. Fritz is the guard during Custom Night, a night where you, the player, tamper with the animatronics and are fired for that, as well as odor. Just like Mike Schmidt from FNAF 1. This is where the idea of Fritz Smith being Mike Schmidt, or Michael Afton, comes in. Fritz Smith is an alias name, using the last name Smith, which is commonly used as an alias name, and Fritz, who just so happens to be the name of the kid who possesses Foxy, both the one who likely does the Bite of 87, and the mascot character Michael likes to play as during FNAF 4. Michael likely comes in during the aftermath of the Bite of 87 as the replacement guard. Not because of the bite, but because Jeremy was moved to the day shift, and to continue what his father started with tampering with the animatronics and figure out how they got possessed, or simply to steal whatever materials he can for his father to experiment with. Ultimately, he gets fired, and the FNAF 2 establishment is forced to close, scrapping the toy animatronics and forced to reorganize the company using what was left of the classics and rebuilding them back to their original designs from 1983 for another relaunch of Freddy's. And that is FNAF 2, or at least my interpretation of it and the events that happen around it. The first sequel of FNAF that expanded the lore in major ways, explored deeper into what was first seen in the first game, and revealed more information to what we knew before that still keeps us thinking to this day. I feel pretty solid in my understanding and explanation of FNAF 2, and obviously I think people still want William to have used the Spring Bonnie or even the Fredbear suit to commit the DCI, and that event happened during Night 5, Night 6, but just the way the game plays out and what we see and hear, the DCI taking place before the game starts and someone else simply accidentally using the Fredbear suit in the back, I think makes sense more logistically with what we see. I do have some thoughts about what happens to the toy animatronics after this game, William's experiments once finding out about how the toy animatronics became possessed, and the secret link between the toy animatronics and the Funtime animatronics. But that's another video. I'll see you all next time.